Propaganda is used by corporations all the time. It's called advertising. We accept it because we don't realize its negative effects on the market. However, when our governments do it, we naturally get a little nervous. I'm Robert Stanley, and this is The Right to Reason. Today's topic is on propaganda, and I'm warning you, you're not going to like what you're about to hear. That was a scene from the 1936 propaganda film Reefer Madness, the best movie to get high to, where the government tried to teach us that smoking weed would lead us to do lots of horrible acts like running people over with your car, jumping out of a window, and worst of all, dancing like this. We're all aware of the propaganda used by the German Nazi Party in the years leading up to and during Adolf Hitler's leadership in Germany, 1933 to 1945. It was a crucial instrument for acquiring and maintaining power, and for the implementation of Nazi policies. The pervasive use of the propaganda by the Nazis is largely responsible for the word propaganda itself acquiring its present negative connotations. But after World War II, the United States entered into a second phase of an era known as the Red Scare. The first phase was primarily focused on anarchism, and the propaganda used during that time was so effective that when I say the word anarchism even today, you think of chaos and an unsustainable form of anti-government. That is not the philosophy of anarchism, but we'll cover that topic another day. The second phase, known as McCarthyism, was directed toward communism, and your government found all the publicity it needed within the Hollywood film industry. After nuking Japan to show Russia that capitalism packed a punch, the U.S. began placing anti-commie messages in all forms of entertainment. They even had a Captain America comic named Commie Smasher. Potential cast and crew were labeled as communists if they refused to work on anti-communist films, like the 1949 propaganda film called I Married a Communist, depicting communists as gangsters and thugs. The United States uses propaganda against other countries as well. This is often done by claiming that another country is not for peace and undemocratic. Democracy has been redefined as any country that allows corporations to control them. The claim is that if it isn't capitalistic, it isn't democratic. Communist countries caught the brunt of this form of attention. Operation Northwoods was a proposed false flag operation against the Cuban government that originated within the U.S. Department of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States government in 1962. The proposals called for the Central Intelligence Agency or other U.S. government operatives to commit acts of terrorism against the American civilians and military targets, blaming it on the Cuban government and using it to justify a war against Cuba. The plans detailed in the document included the possible assassination of Cuban immigrants, sinking boats of Cuban refugees on the high seas, hijacking planes, blowing up a U.S. ship, and orchestrating violent terrorism in U.S. cities. Did you get all that? Our DoD and the Joint Chiefs proposed hijacking an airplane for the use of terrorism against the United States. I'm not making that up. And I'm not a truther, but it is creepy, and the CIA has declassified this operation, so you can easily look it up yourself. Before refusing to sign off on this operation, President John F. Kennedy made this speech and was assassinated less than a year later.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it.
U.S. propaganda strategies slide into your media as well. Even your news is often controlled by your government. And when I say this, I'm not being a conspiracy theorist. I'm merely referencing the results of a congressional investigation. After the Watergate scandal in 1972 to 1974, the U.S. Congress became concerned over possible presidential abuses in the CIA. A wide range of CIA operations were examined in this investigation, including CIA ties with journalists and numerous private voluntary organizations. The final report covers CIA's ties with both foreign and domestic news media. For foreign news media, the report concluded that the CIA maintained a network of several hundred individuals around the world who provide intelligence for the CIA and at times attempt to influence opinion through the use of covert propaganda. These individuals provide the CIA with direct access to a large number of newspapers and periodicals, scores of press services and news agencies, radio and television stations, commercial book publishers, and other foreign media outlets. For the domestic media, the report states that the approximate number of agents that were involved in this was 50. 50 different assets are individual American journalists or employees of the U.S. media organization. Do you know what that means? Some of the journalists that you watch and listen to are actually CIA agents. One of these operations you might recognize is Operation Mockingbird. This is now declassified, and it's a project in which the CIA admits to wiretapping journalists. But there is no longer any cause for concern because before becoming president, George Herbert Walker Bush, who was at the time the director of the CIA, said that the CIA would stop contracting out your trusted media sources. So no worries, right? I believe him. Besides, name one Bush that ever told a lie. We'll get to that in a minute. We've already discussed how Nazi Germany and the United States engaged in propaganda, but other countries utilize propaganda as well, and one country that puts the U.S. to shame in this regard is Russia. Only a few years ago, Russia released an anti-gay film claiming homosexuals died 30 years earlier than heterosexual people and gay couples adopted children for sex. This conflation of something that they hate with something evil isn't so different than the common religious comparison of gays and pedophiles that we see here in the States. In the 1980s, the KGB began rumors that the U.S. was to blame for the AIDS pandemic. They claimed that the illness was a result of U.S. biological warfare experiments. That's just how Russia treats their own. How does Russia use propaganda on other countries? But you're probably already ahead of me in thinking of a prime example. 17 U.S. intelligence communities have agreed that Russia was influential in the election of President Donald Trump. After Trump was declared president, multiple Russian sanctions were dropped. If you want to learn more about this, you can refer to a video that we have on YouTube. It's in the Right to Reason channel titled Trump's Ties to Russia. But even Russia compete with North Korea when it comes to propagandizing their own citizens. You've likely all heard the story by now that's been circulating in the news of the 22-year-old student that spent 17 months in North Korean prisons. He was tortured into a coma before being returned to the States this June, and shortly thereafter he died. But did you know what his crime was? He removed a propaganda poster. That's it. That's all he did. He removed a propaganda poster, and you can see that in this video. A supposedly wealthy fake city built in the 1950s to tempt South Korean defectors into North Korea still exists today. They claim 200 people live there. However, the buildings are shells and the lights operate on timers. In 1978, Kim Jong-il ordered the kidnap of a South Korean film director and actress. The couple was forced to produce pro-North Korean films. In 2003, North Korea produced a video depicting an attack on U.S. government buildings. The clip claimed that the White House was in range of an atomic missile. Other dishonorable mentions include the time the Canadian government staged a German invasion to encourage the sale of war bonds. It was all just for money. Winnipeg saw a 2-hour battle before actors dressed as Nazis arrested citizens and hung swastikas all over the place. In September 2014, ISIS released a Hollywood-style trailer claiming the fight has just begun. After a minute of slow-motion explosions, the words "coming soon" appear. A German Monopoly-style board game in 1938 was based on collecting Jews to eject from the board. The child winning was the one whose Jews scurried off to Palestine through the gates of the walled city. And in 2002, a video game came out called Ethnic Cleansing that encouraged players to kill Jews, Chinese, and black people. Users play as KKK members, and black characters make monkey noises when shot. Here's a quick clip from that gameplay, and I'll warn you, the language in the background is a bit offensive. So we've seen how other countries use propaganda to control their citizens and how the United States of the past did it as well. But would it be interesting to you to see how your own country uses propaganda on us today? I mean, it works, so you didn't think they'd stop, did you? Well, an easy one that we might forget to label as propaganda was this.
Now, Iraq is expanding and improving facilities that were used for the production of biological weapons. Saddam Hussein is harboring terrorists and the instruments of terror, the instruments of mass death and destruction. We cannot wait for the final proof, the smoking gun that could come in the form of a mushroom cloud. Our intelligence officials estimate that Saddam Hussein had the materials to produce as much as 500 tons of sarin, mustard, and VX nerve agent. Intelligence gathered by this and other governments leaves no doubt that the Iraqi regime continues to possess and conceal some of the most lethal weapons ever devised.
We're so quick to laugh about how Trump makes Bush seem smart by comparison that we forget what his administration actually did, and our media assisted by using fear tactics that were easy to muster after the attack at the Twin Towers. Fear tactics that are still used today. In 1984, George Orwell wrote, "It's not a matter of whether or not the war is real. Victory isn't possible. The war is not meant to be won. It's meant to be continuous." War promotion is constant throughout our film and television today, and our tax dollars pay for it. How do they accomplish this right under our noses? Well, the answer is through government grants, and they're usually for a good cause. For example, your government will make an investment in a multi-million-dollar film to ensure the film is filmed here in the States. Imagine a small city paying for a little percentage on a film so that the movie will be made there instead of some other place. That giant staff that makes the film possible will be supporting the businesses in that area and staying in those cities' hotels. Governments are willing to provide these subsidies as they hope it will attract creative individuals to their territory and stimulate employment. Also, a film shot in a particular location can have the benefit of advertising that location to an international audience. Government subsidies are often pure grants, where the government expects no financial return. However, the movie may be required to promote certain themes or advertising for the military. In order to collect the conditional money, the producers will have to sign on the dotted line. One example of this is easily referenced in a movie you actually paid for that came out pretty recently called Independence Day Resurgence. It sucked. Spoiler alert, we kick alien ass again. In order to collect the $2.5 million of taxpayer-contributed money for the production, the producers of ID2 had to portray the military in a positive light and assist in making commercials just like this one.
When the world was brought to its knees, the Army was there to fight back. Promised us that this would never happen again. They have been the driving force in uniting nations around the world to form the most powerful weapon against another attack. The Earth-Space Defense. Brave men and women of the ESD are making sure that the War of '96 will never happen again. Join Earth-Space Defense. Next time, we will be prepared.
If you click that link, you'll be taken to a video game where you get to shoot aliens. That then leads you to a recruiting page for the U.S. Army. Another form of propaganda is diversion, getting you to put your interest in sports and celebrities the same way that Caesar used the Colosseum to distract the public from questioning his authority. But those Roman citizens were pretty dumb, right? The largest form utilized by government is religion, but I'll save that for another topic all by itself. The purpose of propaganda is to stifle the threat of democracy. They don't want you thinking for yourselves. What I've shown you today is just a few examples of how government controls us, and believe me, a lot of juicy stuff got left out. You can find more in Noam Chomsky's book, Manufacturing Consent. It's happening all the time, and it works because you don't know it's happening to you. Keep your eyes open, America. Doubt your media, your government, and the institutions that tell you how to think and how to feel, and never give up your right to reason. If you thought that was interesting, please click subscribe on our YouTube channel. But more than that, I would encourage you to hear the actual show. This isn't it! I host a podcast called The Right to Reason, where we interview a lot of people way smarter than me. If you want to join the discussion, find us on Facebook or hit us up on Twitter at Right to Reason 1. You can support us at patreon.com/right and learn more at therighttoreason.com.